What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another AEW pay-per-view recap. It's your boy Bryan Tanguma back at it, going solo here to talk some AEW. We got the all-out recap taking place from the Now Arena in somewhat, kinda, Chicago, Illinois. It's on the very outskirts of the city. Definitely nowhere near the actual downtown area of Chicago, but don't let them tell you that. It's definitely in the Chicago area. We did have 4 pre-show matches take place. Did not watch a single second of it. We had a tag team match, a trios match, and a 3-way trios match. So, let's see. The Acclaimed won the first one. Holograms, Sammy Guevara, and Dustin Rhodes won the second one. Bang Bang Gang won the third, and then Undisputed Kingdom won the fourth one. So, there you go. There's your pre-show recap. We also had the Costco guys, AJ and Big Justice, boom, make an appearance. Love to see that, but yeah, don't. And there was also some like terrible promo thing on the stage with Sky Blue, Mariah May, and Queen Aminata. Saw a little bit of it. Was not great. So I didn't really watch the pre-show, but T's and P's to anyone out there who did. So let's just jump into the show proper. The opening bout, whatever, was the MJF Daniel Garcia singles match. This one goes 23 minutes 40 seconds. We had Daddy Magic on the call. They did the recurring or whatever interspersed changing announcers throughout, with Tony Schiavone and Excalibur being there for the entire show, while Nigel McGuinness was there for a little bit. Then Taz came in, and then Taz stayed, and JR was there for the last 2 matches. So yeah, MJF defeats Daniel Garcia 23-40. I thought this was a very good match, solid opener to start the show. Crowd, kind of into MJF, boos him a little bit because they know that's what they're supposed to do. Kind of into Daniel Garcia. The story was that MJF almost killed Daniel Garcia. They went very over the top, especially with Daddy Magic there on commentary, being the voice for Daniel Garcia. And Garcia gets bloodied up. He came out with the headband on, and MJF, attacked that, bloodied him up a little bit, and he hulked up, and he tried to make his big monster comeback. It didn't exactly play all that well. It kind of did seem a little corny, and no one really was reacting. I mean, we even got some people in the audience, so obviously people recognizing that it was a copycat version of Hulk Hogan. I think in the year of our Lord 2024, you probably do not want to emulate Hulk Hogan all that much. Finishing sequence was, Garcia surprised MJF with a jackknife cover. Garcia stood and chopped MJF's chest fiercely. He applied a front chancery, armed MJF's arm drop, but Garcia held on to it so it didn't drop down all the way. Nigel said that was a mistake, and it kind of ended up being a mistake as Garcia delivered a jumping pile driver for a near fall. Then on the top rope, MJF bit Garcia to the reverse momentum after shifting the referee's position. MJF then gave Garcia a low blow with the jackknife cover with the leverage 3 count for the one. Kind of awkward. Wasn't your typical roll up jackknife style count. It was like in the back corner of the ring. MJF's shoulders were kind of down. Both of them weren't down, but he was kind of laying on the mat while Garcia was getting the leverage pin, but it wasn't a super obvious high leverage type pin. So the finish did kind of come out of nowhere, which is good and bad, I would say. I think the match overall was very good. Kind of, I don't know, maybe outdid my expectations a wee bit. Action was good throughout. Crowd kind of, I think they got more. It was more they got behind that they got more behind Daniel Garcia than booing or going against MJF with kind of the heelish things he was doing. So I don't know if there's anything to really glean from that. After the match, MJF offered a handshake. Garcia shook his hand and raised MJF's arm. MJF then tried to kick Garcia, but Garcia caught the boot and gave MJF a low blow. He then looked at him and then threw MJF into the top turnbuckle and gave him a leaping pile driver from the second rope, so giving him a little payback for what MJF did to Garcia 9 weeks ago. So, MJF gets the actual win, but Garcia gets a little bit of revenge on that front, getting a little bit of his heat back. MJF selling his neck. They put a brace around his neck. I wonder maybe they write MJ off for a little bit, maybe kind of keep him off television, and then he can, come back and either skip the next pay-per-view or he comes back right before the pay-per-view and he kind of heats up and does something. I kind of picked MJF to win because it seemed the logical move, especially with the lack thereof contract status of Danny Garcia. It was interesting that they had MJF win the match and then have Garcia do that pile driver after the fact. So I wonder if there is some sort of story to get Garcia the win eventually, or that was just them giving him a little bit, but at the end of the day, this feud is probably over, and they just kind of go on their separate ways. Garcia got his pound of flesh, took out MJF, hit him with the pile driver. MJF might be on the shelf for a little bit, and Garcia gets distracted with something else. Then we got the second match on the main show, tag team title match of the Young Bucks defending against the Blackpool Combat Club, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. This one goes 15 minutes, 45 seconds, and the Young Bucks retain. Nothing too crazy to this. Just kind of good action back and forth. Let's see. The Bucks set up a suplex, but Claudio countered by suplex both of them. Claudio gave Matthew his giant swing mid-ring and scored a 2 count. Claudio superplexed Matthew, but Matthew lifted his knees when Yuta went for a top rope splash. Nicholas held Claudio back from making the save as the ref hit the 3 count. So, nothing too crazy here. It was a solid match, a little bit of a come down compared to the opener, and looking back at where this was placed made complete sense. And the match itself kind of came out of nowhere with Claudio and Wheeler challenging them on Dynamite, so just a few days before the show itself. No real story behind it, so good action, but nothing really to write home about. Then we get Will Ospreay taking on Pac, defending the International Championship, and this one went 20 minutes and 20 seconds, and this people wrote down as possibly a show stealer, and I think it did. I thought it delivered. I thought it was a very good match. Whatever you would expect from these two guys, that's what they did, and some. A lot of good crisp high flying, good action, hard hitting. They not really a typical storyline going into this, but the announcers did play up the fact that both these guys have a little bit of a history, both being British guys, British high flyers. They wrestled at a time limit draw back in 2019. So despite there not being a full-blown story of hatred or whatever between these two guys, it was a kind of similar, different generation types going at it to see who is the best. And that's really all you need. Yes, you could have built it up a little bit more and made it seem bigger, but for what they did, I thought this match was fantastic, and I would say it was the best match of the night. Not by a long shot by any means, but the action really did pick up in kind of that last 5 to 7 minutes, I would say. We got the typical, fight forever and this is awesome chants. With Pac hitting the Poison Rana on Ospreay at the stage a few weeks ago. That was a common move. That was a move that we saw attempted and executed numerous times throughout the match, both by Pac and by Ospreay. Finishing sequence, Pac went for a Poison Rana off the top rope, but Ospreay landed on his feet. He then hit a hidden blade for a near fall at the 19-minute mark. Ospreay played to the crowd. As Shivani said, they'll never forget this match. Ospreay landed a top rope cutter, but Pac countered with a Stormbreaker into a 2 count. Ospreay landed a Styles Clash and a hidden blade for the 3. And just a very intense, fun, fast-paced match. And really nothing to complain about. It was just good action, and they did show Ricochet backstage watching this, and then after the match, I think after a match or two following this, they did a backstage interview with Ospreay, just kind of asking him about what he thought about the match, and Ospreay said that whenever Pac can have another title shot whenever he wants. Then Ricochet came, and they talked trash back and forth, and it was really striking. like how much better of a promo Ospreay was compared to Ricochet. And it wasn't even like a typical I stand here for 2 minutes, I talk, then you talk for 2 minutes, but it was just a non-scripted backstage yelling back and forth, and Ospreay seemed much more comfortable. Ricochet just kept repeating the same lines over and over and over again. It was kind of awkward what Ricochet was saying. Ospreay definitely did have the upper hand on the mic skills, and I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, if you go back to their times, whenever that was, like 2017, 18, 16, when they had like that Super Juniors match and they, blew up the internet, they were fairly similar. Two high-flying guys. Character work wasn't really their strong suit, but they were so good in the ring, it didn't really matter. But in the coming years, in the past few years, Ospreay, I think, has developed into a solid character. Ricochet has gone better, but Ospreay, I would still say, is leaps and bounds better than what Ricochet is at the moment, and they're definitely teasing that match. Don't know if they're going to go right away into it. Ospreay did say, buddy, you got to rack up some wins before you come at me. So maybe they are going to save that for, let's see, we're in September now. We got Wrestle Dream in October. I don't know what their next two pay-per-views are. Maybe they do it at Revolution, and that's kind of one of their marquee pillar matches on the card. So maybe, Ricochet, racks up some wins, maybe has a pay-per-view win here and there, and then we finally do get that Ospreay Ricochet match at Revolution, which should be fantastic. I'm a little not worried, but I kind of wonder what Ricochet is looking like in-ring wise. He did the one match against Kyle Fletcher. It looked good. I think he maybe kind of gassed himself out trying to be too much of that old school PWG type Ricochet. Now that he's in his, how old is Ricochet? Like, I'm going to say 35. Any takers before I say it? Ooh, look at me, 35. He's going to be 36 in October, but I'm going to take the W there on that front. So still relatively young in terms of wrestling-wise, but obviously kind of older in the high flyer type. Because like even, what's Pac? What's Pac wrestling at? He is 38. So, just slightly older. And then Ospreay is 31. So quite a bit younger than Ricochet and Pac. And Pac, I think, is still, pretty good. He doesn't wrestle like maybe as much as you would think, but yeah. Anyways, I don't know what I'm doing. Then we get Chris Statlander taking on Willow Nightingale in a Chicago street fight. They originally had this as the CMLL women's title, but then they kind of took that off as the as a stipulation, which I'm perfectly fine with. I do not need women's I don't need even more outsourced promotions having their championships be upheld. Willow Nightingale still the champion, so I don't know if there was some sort of political reasoning behind that. Maybe it was at the beginning they thought Willow was gonna win and keep the title, but then now they decided to have it on, or have Chris Statlander with this match, because she gets the win at 15 minutes. And this was it's a Chicago street fight. You do have the unsanctioned lights out cage match as the main event, so they're not going to go two balls to the wall. But there was a very solid storyline behind this. It's been building for months now. I don't know exactly when Willow and Statlander first teamed up, but they've been together for months, and the crowd did care about this match. It was probably, honestly, like one of the more heated matches on the show. Like, now, was the crowd going absolutely crazy for like the start of the match? No, but they were, solidly behind Willow, booing Statlander when she was doing like her heelish things. And I think that just kind of shows that as much as AEW is kind of the promotion about ring work, you give the crowd some sort of story to get behind and believe in, they'll fall in line and they'll cheer for the face and boo the heels. So your standard kind of hardcore match. I would probably say like a Dynamite hardcore match. We got some Oh, well, we did get a light tube. Willow did smash Statlander with like a taped up 3-piece light tube, and Statlander kind of got bloodied up. Don't know if I assume it was hard way because she kind of got cut up on the, maybe it was blade job on the forehead, but then she did get cut a little bit on the back. Got some thumbtacks, table. Nasty shot. If you see it, you can look it up on Twitter, where they had an on the outside. Willow was on the table, and Statlander went for like a swanton, and Willow was supposed to get out of the way, and she kind of did, but Statlander's swinging feet kind of clocked Willow on the head while she was rolling out of the way. So even though technically Statlander was supposed to miss completely, she definitely did not good for on the announcers. Like they pointed out right away, they went to replay. It looked nasty. Luckily, Willow wasn't knocked out, or it kind of derailed the match by any sense. But I thought that was another thing. Like on the whole in the show, was the announcers were pretty good. I thought they were pointing out things that made sense. Like in the Ospreay Pac match, like there were some times where technically maybe, Ospreay or Pac were, blowing the illusion of wrestling because Pac was like looking behind him and then he ducked, but the announcers covered for that. There's another point where Ospreay like went for like a jump, like go to a cutter, and Pac was just standing there, but right before he did counter, the announcers pointed out that I think he's going to counter this move because he's waiting for him. And it's just a little thing that may be too technical on some people's parts, but it's just something that I do appreciate. It was like, oh yeah, like it's something that would be logical for someone who's just watching the matches to point out, to be like, look, they're standing there, so maybe they're ready for this move and they're gonna take advantage of this. And I thought overall it was a good show for the announcers, which sometimes they get a little too cheeky at points. So yeah, Chris Statlander brought out the thumbtacks. She does try to go for like a leg kick, and she does like the splits into the in the thumbtacks. I mean, she kind of missed them. It didn't look great. She kind of had like some thumbtacks like on her thighs, on her ass, and like on her back, but like it wasn't like a clean shot by any means. I think we have like a suplex on there, and some other moments with the thumbtacks, but probably should read the finish because that's what I've been doing thus far. Let's see. They stood and exchanged wild swings. They hit each other mid-ring and just slumped to the... Statlander pulled out what we thought was a dog chain, but it was like a Russian chain. As Tony Schiavone pointed out, it was attached to the wrist. So kind of like, Drew and CM Punk with the strap match, but they strapped each other to the wrist and it was a chain instead. So that was a little awkward because Statlander was trying to put it on Willow, and then she was having some difficulty. And Willow was having to feint that she was knocked out. So there was like some points where Willow was trying to, make a comeback, but then she had to, still sell to get the chain put on her. And then Statlander, I think, just yelled out to the referee, like, come help her to put the thing on. So they went back and forth, exchanging those wild swings. They seemed to share a moment. So like they were kind of like, going back and forth. They kind of like collapsed on each other. They kind of hugged. Or, not like hugged, but just kind of seemed like have some sort of moment between the two out of respect. And then Statlander landed a tombstone and then wrapped the chain around Willow's neck and mouth for the win. It was, I guess it technically was a submission. I didn't seem like a clear-cut tap out, but Statlander gets the win in 15 minutes. I thought this was a well-executed, intense, brawl. And... not going to be like, for the women, it was a good match. But just like overall, I thought it was a good, solid, intense match that had a solid story behind it. Crowd was into it. They didn't overstay their welcome. Maybe there were some points and there was a little awkward, but yeah. And this is kind of the end of the first half. And shocker, kind of think the show goes downhill after this match. Then we get the 4-way match for the AEW Continental Title Classic, whatever the fuck it's called these days. Okada defending against Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Konosuke Takeshita. This match also goes around 15 minutes, and Okada gets the win. Just a, typical match you see like on Dynamite or Collision or whatever. Just kind of a lot of bodies back and forth. They have some spots. They have some moments. The big spots, quote unquote, were Okada and Takeshita kind of teasing, going back at each other. I don't remember how much physicality they did, if at all, but they definitely were teasing it. And it's like the crowd was into it. That was like the only time the crowd really cared about this, was anytime Okada and Takeshita were either in the ring together or alone and looking at each other. So they are definitely teasing that match. The crowd wants that match, and I really do hope they give us that match. Okada thus far in AEW has not been very good. No shade at him. Get your money, boo boo, if that's what they're asking you to do, and they just want you to act like a child, say bitch, and give everyone the middle finger, and have three-star matches. Then God bless you. You had your run over in Japan, but I would love to get, the Rainmaker, the real Rainmaker, just not in name, in AEW. And maybe if they have a full-blown Takeshita Okada match, that definitely could be the case there. And I do really like Takeshita. He had a fantastic G1. They ran one video package during a Dynamite to say like, hey, look, Takeshita was over in Japan and now he's back. So that was nice to see that they did something about it. I thought they could have done a little bit more with the the build of Takeshita, and he beats Kenny Omega twice, and then I know Omega had the diverticulitis and stuff, but then Takeshita didn't really do anything after that. So I really do hope that this is kind of the breaking point for Takeshita to do something, because if not, honestly, just have him go back to Japan and be like one of the top guys in New Japan at this point if they're not going to do anything with him in AEW. So Cassidy rolled up Okada for a 2 count. Cassidy swung with an orange punch, but Okada ducked and then hit the Rainmaker for the win. They showed Callis. Yeah, Callis was on commentary for this one. And Takeshita at ringside staring down, celebrating Okada. That was another point of the commentators I thought was a good point. They kind of pointed out that when you're up in the air to do the orange punch, you kind of leave yourself vulnerable. Okada ducked it and hit his finish for the win. So just another kind of sports-like match. And like I said, it was perfectly fine. It's kind of one of those matches that like the show ended up clocking right at 4 hours. And if you're trying to get it to sub 3.5, nearing 3, this is definitely like a match I would cut. Like this and the tag team match were probably the two I just did not really care for at all. And that thing could get cut. Then we get the AEW TBS title match. Shocker, another title match, guys. Yay. Mercedes Moné defending against Hikaru Shida. This one also goes around the 16-minute mark. Camille was banned at ringside, and crowd just was kind of dead for this one. They kind of like Shida, kind of like Mercedes. We kind of had some dueling chants back and forth, and I don't know. Like this point of the match, this point of the show is kind of like where the crowd died, and that's why I said like after that Willow Statlander match, they kind of died. And like even during the Chicago Street Fight, they weren't like crazy for it, but they were getting the spots, like I said. And then the 4-way match, meh, really nothing. And then this singles women's match, really nothing. And this is like your main event women's title match since you don't have Mariah May on the card. And this did not really deliver, unfortunately. Shida has had, really good matches in AEW. Monet has had really good matches outside of AEW. I think maybe, she's had like one decent match, but, if you listen to my All In recap, I was not a fan of the Britt Baker Monet match. Not a big fan of this one. And thus far, the common denominator there is Monet. And I'm not going to blame her completely, but I did think the finish was like quite weird. They're kind of telling a story of maybe Shida turning heel, not like outwardly, but just more of a character shift of Shida being a little less happy-go-lucky and a little more intense. Mercedes, so they did. Shida was doing her katana kicks, and she hit one. She kind of botched it, didn't hit it all that great. Then Mercedes clearly said something to her, like calling a spot. Then Shida like laid one the fuck in. Like she really connected on that second one. And then she kicked Monet again with the third. So she hit 3 of like her finishers. I don't know exactly what Shida's finisher is, but she hit 2 of those. And then Shida pins her, but then Monet just kicked out at 1. And it wasn't even like those, I call them like Ishii kickouts, because Ishii does do like good kickouts at 1. He like hulks up. But Mercedes just kicks out at 1, no pop from the crowd. She just like scurries out to the ring and runs like right to the kendo stick. She does kendo stick that was in one of the corners. It was very weird and just did not flow at all. I do not know what they were going for there. So Mercedes then goes to the kendo stick. Shida yanked it away from her, brought it into the ring. The ref warned her not to use it. Shida wound up, was gonna go hit Monet, but then decided not to. She turned her back. Mercedes went after her, but Shida elbowed. Shida went to the top rope, but Mercedes moved out the way. Mercedes chop blocked the knee and then hit the money maker for the win. So yeah, once again, just like a weird finish. Like, why would Shida? Shida was in complete control for that final sequence of the match. And then you do the finish where Monet scurries out to the ring to get the kendo stick. And then Shida gets the kendo stick. It's like, oh my God, am I going to hit her? Am I not going to hit her? What should I do? Oh, I'm so angry. But like, that was not really the story going into, like, that was not really the story during the match. She didn't, to my recollection, like, go for the kendo stick at all. It was just there because that's just a thing she does. And it was just like fake drama for the sake of fake drama. And it just did not hit. So yeah, it was like really awkward between the two, especially at the very end. So I don't know if something happened. I mean, to my recollection, Shida's English is like okay enough that I don't think there should be some sort of language barrier if like something breaks down. I don't know. I mean, Mercedes has had like good matches with Japanese women before, so I don't know what that was at the end. It was strange. But yeah, I don't know what to make of that. It was definitely one of the lower points on the show. Then the AEW main event, kind of, with Bryan Danielson defending his AEW World Title against Jack Perry. They ran a video package for the show for the match. Then they cut to the parking lot where we got the scapegoat shuttle bus driven by Jack Perry. Faintly in the background, we did get some, like, I couldn't tell if they were CM Punk or if they were fuck CM Punk chants. So, we got Jack Perry in Chicago trying to get heat for a guy that has not wrestled in that company for well over a year now and might main event WWE's next pay-per-view if they do that Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood. So, that's what they want to do. God bless you. So Jack Perry parks the scapegoat truck or bus in the parking lot. The Young Bucks are waiting for him. They were holding the goat mask and the TNT title. We had a Riot Shield walk out with them. So yeah, they try to spruce it up a little bit, trying to go for some of that Chicago heat. And they, as I said, they did get some chance in the very beginning, but then once Perry got into the actual building and like did his entrance, there wasn't really all that much heat, to be honest. And then Danielson comes out to the final countdown, so it seems as though that's going to be his theme song for every match he has going forward, since it technically is the final countdown. Every match he has, every title match he has, his career is on the line, which I thought was not interesting, but it was kind of dumb that we have another Danielson retirement match, and it wasn't really hyped up like at all on Dynamite. It was just kind of there. So it did kind of bleed into the drama or lack thereof with this match that we all kind of knew that Danielson was not going to win. It goes 28 minutes. Danielson does retain. Could it, once again, if we're looking for points to shave off, probably could have shaved off like 5 minutes of this. Either shave like 5 minutes off of the match or kind of build up that intensity. I thought the match kind of dragged a little bit at times. If you listen to the Bash in Berlin, or if you listen to the Bulletcast where I talked about Bash in Berlin, I did feel as though like the Randy Orton Gunther match was dragging at times, and that was an even longer match than this one was. But I did kind of feel that was the case mainly when Jack Perry was on offense. He kind of has that deliberate, beat down, sulk it, drink it in, do his little pose and like, oh my God, aren't I so bad? Everyone hates me, boo me, and things like that. And like, if the crowd was going absolutely apeshit for him and booing, like he's whatever Tommaso Ciampa post heel turn on Johnny Gargano, like, sure, yeah, that makes sense. But you're doing all this stuff and the crowd really doesn't care all that much. So, I think maybe the worst thing for him was he came back and he did that debut return at the New Japan show in Chicago, and he got just a massive reaction, both kind of positive and negatively. and maybe they thought coming back to Chicago he would get something similar to that, and honestly wasn't really the case. Crowd was into Bryan though. Bryan was intense. As I said, I did like when Bryan was on offense and he was kind of in control for some of the matches, for some parts of the matches, and the finish, once again, just like the Mercedes match, not a big fan of this finish. More of a, well, the women's match was also kind of a dumb finish as well. I thought they had a really good false finish right before the ending. They go back and forth. Can I find? Let's see. Perry delivered a running knee to the side of Danielson's head. The ref counted really slowly, and Danielson kicked out before 3. We did get a run-in from the Young Bucks midway through, and then Claudio and Yuta ran them off. So they got canceled out. So then we knew it was just gonna be a 1-on-1 match. The ref counted really slowly. Perry he hit Perry with the Busaiku knee. Perry bumped halfway across the ring after impact. They stood in the ring and exchanged slaps. Danielson landed another Busaiku knee for the near fall. That was the fantastic near fall. Was they exchanged some slaps and then kind of a Busaiku knee out of nowhere. Danielson sat up, smiled. Danielson grabbed Perry's arms and stomped away. The fans said yes. Danielson's encouragement. Perry then sat up, extended his arms as if to sacrifice himself. Danielson then charged up with another Busaiku knee for the win. Now, was not a fan of this finish. Like, if the world title should mean something, and not only that, you can retire Bryan Danielson if you win this match. And similar to his work style in this character, kind of nonchalant, who gives a shit, that was the finish to the match. Perry apparently had the wherewithal and the ability to acknowledge Danielson and sacrifice himself. So if he can do that, why wouldn't he be able to get out of the way? I not a fan of the finish, but the crowd was into Danielson overall, and that kind of tipped it over the top to kind of make it a good match. There was really no doubt that Danielson was going to lose this match. They did kind of play a part into it. But yeah, that was, it was a good match, but if this was the main event of the show, then that would be, maybe a little bit disappointing for a Danielson, title defense. So the fans sang the final countdown. Then Killswitch came out of nowhere and attacked Danielson. Then we get Christian Cage. His music hits, and he has the contract, and it's kind of their pseudo Money in the Bank. Christian comes out, but then Jon Moxley shows up, and he doesn't physically block them, but just kind of stands in front of Moxley, and then the rest of the BCC and Pac, who knows what his role officially is in the BCC is. Danielson kind of chuckled and kind of looked amused of the situation. Then Christian backed off. They walked away. Then they get back into the ring. Everyone then, the BCC then raised Danielson's hand. Danielson led the crowd in Getz chants. Everyone, entered the ring. Claudio raised Danielson's arms, then gave him an uppercut. And then Mox put a plastic bag over Danielson's head. Pac then held Yuta back, trying to save Danielson's life. Yuta cried in agony. Marina Shafir was also there as well. Fans chanted, "This is murder." Ross said it's uncalled for. Mox released his grip as Danielson gasped for breath. Mox, Shafir, Claudio, and Pac left through the crowd. Yuta ran over to Danielson as the medical team gave him oxygen. I mean, I just did not like this. It was one point on Dynamite when Hangman burnt down Swerve's house, which is arson, which is a felony. And, there's things where wrestling is stupid and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that was one of them. And I was kind of back and forth of I liked the promo Hangman cut. Did he go a little bit too far? And the thing is, it just takes me out of the moment when you do things like that, because I know Hangman, yes, technically the the house is burning down, but it's not like he legitimately committed a felony and did all this shit. And even more so here. Like, it's one thing to burn a house down, and it's another thing to take a plastic bag, put it over someone's head, and, like, fake someone trying to kill another person. And even if you're not trying to kill him, at least, like, try to make him pass out and suffocate. I don't know. That was just so stupid. I don't know why they would do that. Whose idea that was. Just absolutely idiotic. And like, Danielson has done these things where he tries to fake the neck injury of like, oh my gosh, is he paralyzed? Is something wrong with him? Moxley, I mean, I thought I had more faith in Moxley. Like, if you were to tell me who I align more with in terms of wrestling psychology, I thought I would have picked Moxley over Danielson, but like, both of these guys were involved in this, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Yeah, and like, another thing from like a psychology point is you do this very heavy angle right before your lights out unsanctioned match. So like, it kind of cucks that of like, the whole point of the main event is this like is a super serious, very intense blood feud that is going to cross the line, and oh my God, we can't be involved with this as a company. So they're just kind of on their own. But then yet technically a part of the main event of your real main event of, you know, the AEW title, someone tries to kill a guy. Just from like multiple different levels, I thought this was just so idiotic, so stupid. And like, yes, I seen pictures of, you know, people are saying like, oh my God, Terry Funk did this back in the day, like back in the 80s, and like somebody else did that. But yeah, just because somebody else did it back in the day doesn't mean you need to do this now. And also back then, like, yeah, there were some, like, people did know it was fake back in the 80s, but even more people know it's fake now. And like I said, when you do an angle like that, it just takes me out of the moment, and it's like, okay, I know this is, like, you're not actually killing this guy, and, like, by God, if you actually are, like, what the fuck are you doing? But I know you're not, so it just, yeah. From all different angles of this, I thought it was just so stupid. I've been intrigued with the Moxley character shift, heel turn, presumably, and now officially. But yeah, this was a big swing and a miss on my part, on my, you know, my viewpoint. You know, there's just a lot of points of AEW where it's, oh my God, this hasn't been done before, or wouldn't it be cool if, but then you don't kind of think it through. Like Jack Perry, I think, does that a lot. MJF does that a lot. And now, you know, now Moxley did this and Danielson did this. I thought that was just, as I, you know, the Mercedes Sheeta match might have been like one of my low points of the show. This was like the full low point of the show. I mean, just terrible. If I can do a Charles Barkley impersonation. Then main event time, lights out steel cage match. Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana taking on Hangman Adam Page. This one goes 31 minutes, 30 seconds. Quite a long match. Honestly, didn't feel like that. I thought it was a really fun match. I enjoyed this. Well, as fun as a really intense blood feud can be. You know, I was in attendance, humble brag, for the Full Gear Texas Death Match. I think it's a Texas Death Match, whatever. Their death match they had at Full Gear in November. Really thought that match was fantastic. Basically the only redeeming quality of that entire show. And I was wondering, how are they going to top this? I don't know if they did top it, but it was a really fun match, really good match, intense. I did kind of think this going in, that the steel cage was going to limit them, because a lot of the stuff they were doing in that Full Gear match was on the outside. Hangman Page does the buckshot lariat, and that was even a point in the match where Hangman tried to go for the buckshot, but he couldn't because the cage was kind of blocking him in. Swerve did try to, well, I guess he did do like a buckshot while using the referee as leverage, but he like completely slipped and like missed it. So maybe there's like some voodoo power on Hangman Page that any person who tries to do the buckshot lariat on Page himself cannot do it, because we saw CM Punk try to do it multiple times. It did not work. Swerve tried to do it here. It did not work. So just future reference for any wrestlers out there trying to copy Hangman Page and do the buckshot lariat on himself. Do not do that. But they had the cage above the ring before the match started, and then Swerve and Hangman kind of attacked each other while the cage was lowering. And then while that was going on, Prince Nana was on the outside taking some plunder. He took a box out, took a table out, and some other things, threw it into the ring. So that kind of helped out with the cage stipulation, kind of like, putting the weapons inside the cage instead of doing like the Dean Ambrose, whatever it was, a Sane Asylum match that he had with Chris Jericho, where we had like potted plants, handcuffed to the cage. So they didn't do anything stupid like that, but just a hard hitting, intense brawl. In that box that I said, Swerve pulled out a cinder block, and they had, Swerve has done this in the past with Keith Lee. I forget exactly if he'd done it with other people. I think he pulled out a cinder block against Hangman in their Full Gear match, but I forget if he did it with anybody else as well. But call me a mark, but I think this might have been a legit cinder block, because both guys took flat back-esque bumps on it, and it did not budge whatsoever. Because I remember the Keith Lee stomp, that thing broke into a million pieces. I think the same with the Full Gear cinder block, that thing crumbled. So whether it was a different type of cinder block or it was a legit cinder block, the thing stood its ground and it did not break in this match. Looked disgusting. Hangman took a dead eye, or took some sort of like pile driver, whatever. He took a move on the cinder block, and it like scraped the cinder block, and a really good shot of like the redness on his back. Swerve took like more of a straight flat back bump on the cinder block. That it looked disgusting. We didn't see like a close up of his back to see if there's any markings on there. We did get the staple gun. Swerve stapled some of his childhood photos to Hangman. We got blood. And how were we going to top this? Well, how are we going to top this from their Full Gear match while also trying to top attempted murder about 35-40 minutes beforehand? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we pull out needles and unprotected chair shots to the head. So Swerve Hangman was just absolutely beating the shit out of Swerve with the chair, hitting him with the back, and Swerve started to laugh, and he sat up, started laughing, held up two fingers, and then he collapsed after he leaned into Hangman. Hangman lifted Swerve up and told him he was going to finish him. He yanked out his grill, Swerve's grill. I do not think Hangman has a grill, or at least a grill in terms of... Anyways, Hangman lifted Swerve and told him he was going to finish him. He yanked out his grill, then he pulled out a needle and then stuck the needle into Swerve's cheek. The crowd gasped. I gasped. Like, I'm not like a anti-needle guy. Like, I'm a big boy. I can take my shots. But I thought it looked disgusting. I don't know what they were going for. Like, are we saying he like Novocained or some sort of drugged his mouth? It's one of those things that like looks kind of gruesome, but then you don't exactly know what's going on unless it's explicitly told to you. So the risk or whatever, the visual, I do not think is worth the reward in any circumstance there. Excalibur said it's like a horror movie unfolding before their eyes. Hangman then smashed a chair over Swerve's head. The chair broke. The ref called off the match for a knockout, and Hangman was declared the winner. They did a cheeky little camera angle where they went to the hard cam full arena type shot, so it wasn't like a handheld right in front of it. So whether that was whatever the director choice was to protect the look of it because they don't want the violence of it, or just they thought because it probably was a gimmick chair, because that's what AEW is always going to say is, oh, it's a gimmick chair, so it's safe. You're still like absolutely walloping somebody in the head with, whether it's a piece of plastic or a piece of soft metal, you're still hitting the shit out of someone in the head. But yeah, almost or over 30 minutes, and this match was gruesome. I liked it I did think the crowd was kind of dead at points. I don't know what the case was because, had the story involved. They liked both guys. We did have a Hangman Swerve chant going back and forth. We did get a cowboy shit chant throughout. And then we also got like cowboy shit or like a Hangman chant at the very end of the show after Hangman won. So I do wonder if maybe after all this lunacy, similar to what happened to Swerve at the end of 2023, that this ultimately turns Hangman babyface, or at least, makes Hangman more of a crowd favorite. I mean, Hangman, even though he's been a heel for pretty much the entire year now, even with his break, that he's, the crowd is still liking him. So I don't know what they're going to do after this. I think this is like the definitive end of the feud for now. Maybe you go back to it in a year or two or even more, but I do not need to see these guys again, especially with the kind of level and the kind of expectations that they've set. Let's just not do these types of matches again. And like I said, I think the cage itself did kind of hinder the movement and the flow of it. Also, a cage does make it kind of hard for people to see. So they're going to, look at the Tron. You're going to try to see what's actually going on in the ring, but it is kind of hard to see what is going on in there at times. So maybe that did play into it. So the crowd was, I think, as I said, I think the crowd was kind of a factor and kind of fell off in the back half of the show, which did kind of affect it overall. Whether it's them being tired, not feeling all that much, a combination of the two, I do not know. But overall, I thought All Out was a solid show, really strong to start it. First half I thought was really good, and we still had, this match, still had the main event to go, and I thought like, okay, this could really be like last year's All Out, where it didn't have that much hype. It was back to back weeks. This time they got 2 weeks in between All Out and All In, but it just didn't like hit that next level. The title, the main event match, the lights out match, the title match, the Shida Monet match, as I said. While I thought there were some positives, there are also some negatives to it as well. So overall, kind of an up and down show, especially in the back half of it. I will give AEW All Out a B. Solid show. It definitely could have had the potential of an A or an A minus, to be honest. I thought the beginning of the show was that strong, but as I said, it kind of did flounder. It did kind of taper off a little bit at the end. But let me know what you guys thought about it. Sound off in the comments. Follow Bulletcast, the Bulletcast, wherever you may be. Follow Curveballs and Chair Shots at Curveballs and CS on Twitter and Instagram. If you haven't, check out the latest episodes of both Bulletcast and Curveballs and Chair Shots. We'll be back with new episodes this week. Hopefully, I don't know what that was, but hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the week. Stay safe out there. Love you all. Big hugs, tiny kisses. Goodbye and good night. Bye.